Prime Billy Hamilton was electric. There's not really a better word to describe him. He was being called a phenom before he even made the majors. He topped out at number 11 at MLB's top prospect list, which is reserved for only the best of the best minor league players. He generated all this hype while posting just a .651 OPS in his final year in the minor leagues in 2013. A .651 OPS is not good, as that would place him in 130th out of 134 qualified hitters in the majors in 2023. You might be thinking, well then what is he doing to get up here amongst all this top young talent? This is a question you probably already know the answer to, but just in case you didn't, that answer is speed. Baseball isn't known for having the most dominant athletes out there playing on a day-to-day basis. Compared to the NFL and NBA, you don't really need to be running a 4.4 40-yard dash and have a 40-inch vertical to be effective. Billy Hamilton was far from the average baseball player, though. In fact, he's one of the most unique MLB players of all time. He held the fastest sprint speed in the league early in his career, above 30 feet per second. When you think about the stars of the league today, you think of Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto. They all have one thing in common. They could hit the ball pretty well. Now, Hamilton was never on the level of these guys in terms of skill or popularity, but after his rookie season, a lot of people knew his name. Most likely, you yourself clicked on this video because you knew who he was. He was such a fascinating player solely just because of how unique he was. Hamilton finished the year runner-up in the National League Rookie of the Year to some guy named Jacob deGrom, but he did manage to get 4 first-place votes, even though deGrom had a dominant year. No matter what level of stats you look at, Hamilton did not fare well at the plate. Looking at the surface-level stats from his first 3 years in the league, they aren't too threatening. The batting average was okay around the mid-200s mark, but he did not hit for any power as you can see in the home run totals. This resulted in very few runs batted in. Now, these stats obviously don't mean much in modern baseball, but even the more important stats don't look all that good. The on-base percentage and slugging percentage were very low, which led to a very low OPS and OPS+. A 72 OPS plus means that he was 28% worse than a league average hitter. This obviously means that he was far from the best hitter on the field. Now, we can go deeper and look at the underlying numbers, or the expected stats. These stats try to get rid of all the luck that's involved with hitting and evaluate a player solely on the quality of contact using launch angle and exit velocity. By these numbers, he was one of the worst hitters in the league. By xWOBA, he was the 3rd worst hitter in the league in 2015 and was the 4th worst hitter in the league in 2016. Even with all these awful offensive numbers, after his first 3 seasons in the league, Billy Hamilton could be described as a good baseball player for the most part. If you look at his FWAR totals through these first 3 seasons, he put up some pretty decent numbers. For reference, 2 FWAR is deemed an average player, so he had some good seasons here early in his career. Well, if you're statistically one of the worst hitters in the league and you're a position player, how in the world is Billy Hamilton this good? Well, that is what makes him so interesting. When you bring up offense in baseball, a lot of people will immediately think of the home runs, the doubles, maybe even a guy taking his walks and getting on base, but those aren't the only ways to contribute on offense. Fangraphs actually had Billy Hamilton as an above-average offensive player in terms of production in 2016, and we just went through all of his hitting numbers, so they clearly aren't contributing to this. A sneaky little thing people often forget about when it comes to offensive production is base running. Now, I'm not just talking about stolen bases. Yes, they are important, but that is often the extent that people talk about base running. There is so much more than stolen bases. This is where Billy Hamilton really makes his living on offense. Let's take a closer look at Hamilton's 2016 year. His hitting numbers are pretty bad, but this is one of his better hitting seasons in his career, believe it or not. Obviously, though, you would guess that this was a below-average offensive player, but he wasn't. Fangraphs has this metric that combines batting and base running and compares it to the average player in the league. Positive numbers mean above average and negative numbers mean below average. Hamilton's value was a positive 0.4, which is above average. In 2016, Yasmani Tomas, that's a name, had a value of 0.3 in offensive production according to Fangraphs. You can take a look at his other offensive numbers and compare them to Hamilton's. They are clearly superior in just about every category, and this just goes to show you how offense isn't just all about hitting, and there are other ways to produce runs rather than hitting home runs and hitting extra base hits. First, we can talk about all the stolen base numbers that Billy put up because those are fairly simple. This is where most of the prospect hype surrounding him was made. He stole 155 bases in a single season in the minors in 2012. That is the minor league record by 10 whole stolen bases. That would be the major league record. It's a lot of stolen bases. Obviously, you can see why he was getting a lot of attention, even though his hitting numbers weren't all that good. In 2014, he stole 56 bases, in 2015, he stole 57, and in 2016, he stole 58. Stolen bases are just moving up a base without the batter hitting the ball, essentially just taking an extra base. That same thing can happen when taking an extra base while base running, when the ball is in play. Billy Hamilton would go where most people stopped. Single up the middle? Let me just turn that into a double real quick. Ground ball that the left fielder cuts off? Yeah, I'll score from first there. Billy Hamilton did stuff like this all the time in 2016, and these extra bases are very valuable to the offense, and this is where all the offensive value comes from in Billy Hamilton's game. Baseball Savant began tracking base running value in 2016. They take into account the runner's speed, position on the base paths, the outfielder's arm, and the outfielder's position to estimate how likely the runner is to take the extra base. Based on how difficult the extra base is, the more valuable it is. On this double by Zach Cozart, Hamilton starts on first base, and we can stop the video right around here when the outfielder gets to the ball. Now, Baseball Savant takes into account 4 different things: Billy's sprint speed and position on the base paths, as well as Starling Marte's arm, who is the left fielder in this play, and his position in the outfield. Based on these 4 inputs, they can put a probability on Hamilton taking the extra base, which in this case is him going home. Using this probability and the situation in the game, they can assign a value in terms of runs that Hamilton added to the team by taking that extra base. On this play, it had a value of 0.25 runs, and he of course makes it in safely, which adds this value to the team. An important thing to note in this metric is that it strictly accounts for base running. You don't necessarily need to be the fastest runner to accrue base running value. It will definitely help give the player more opportunities to take extra bases, but their speed is taken into account in the evaluation. If you add up all the base runner runs from Hamilton in 2016, you get 6, which is an all-time record. There have been a few other players to do this, and they weren't all fast. Guys like Chris Bryant and Xander Bogaerts also put up 6 runs. As we go through some of Hamilton's best plays on the bases, I think it's helpful to look at some of his worst. This was his worst base running performance in the 2016 season, with a run value of negative 0.19. By Baseball Savant's calculations, a player with Hamilton's speed should have easily scored on that play, but he had to be held up at third. Off the bat, he went all the way back to second, almost touching it to make sure the ball wasn't caught. It's better to be safe than sorry, but that may have been too safe. His second least valuable run was this, when he misread a line drive into left field and held it second for too long. This had a run value of negative 0.08. He didn't have too many of these mistakes though, as he does hold the record for most base running runs in a year, and I just want to show you the negative plays so you could get an idea on how this metric works. It's pretty clear that Hamilton is an elite base runner, but what makes him a really unique player is when you combine that with his speed. If you look at the top 10 base running seasons since 2010, you can see that Billy is the only one that comes in twice with his 2015 and 2016 seasons. What makes it even crazier is the fact that Hamilton only played 114 and 119 games in those seasons. This stat is a counting stat, just like WAR. The larger the sample size, the more advantage you have over others. All of these players on this list are both great base runners and are very fast runners. Even when you take this elite base running value into account, a 3.7 WAR with league average offense is pretty crazy, especially in only 119 games. If he would have played a full season of around 150 games, he would have been closer to 5 WAR. He's not generating this much WAR with just his base running, obviously, so that leads us into the next topic, which is defense. There are 8 different positions that you can play defensively, and they are all of different importance. Catcher is in a tier of its own at the top, but the next 2 are clearly shortstop and center field. Billy Hamilton plays center field, which is already a good start for his defensive value. He is playing a valuable position. Center field is much more valuable than the corner spots in the outfield for obvious reasons. They have more ground to cover, which means that they will get more opportunities to showcase their defensive skills. Good center fielders need 4 main tools: be fast, get good jumps, take good routes, and have a good arm. Billy Hamilton had all 4 of them. There have been plenty of center fielders that could run, but weren't as good in the field because they couldn't read fly balls at an elite level. There were some that could run fast, get good jumps, and take good routes, but they didn't have a strong arm. Hamilton had all four, which is very rare. You can only name a few more guys with the same skill set, guys like Byron Buxton, Victor Robles, and Kevin Kiermaier. You can see how good he was with the eye test, but to quantify just how good Billy was in center field, we can look at the numbers. Baseball Savant began tracking defensive metrics in 2016, those metrics being outs above average and arm value. We can combine these two stats into fielding run value, which is basically just a number of how many runs a player is worth on defense in a given time period. In 2016, Hamilton put up a 20-run season on defense, which is tied for the 5th best season ever recorded in center field, and it was 14th best regardless of position. Whether it's him using his speed and quickness to track down balls or him using his arm to throw runners out, he was providing a lot of value on defense. Saving a run on defense is just as important as scoring a run on offense. They both net the team one run. Most people will always point to hitting when it comes to value for a position player, but Billy Hamilton did it in a different way. If you really want to know how unique Billy Hamilton was, you can go look at this article by Jeff Sullivan on Fangraphs. He goes into detail just how unique and how rare a player with Billy Hamilton's skill set was. It's a pretty good read. You should go read it. Helped inspire this video, so if you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy reading this article. That is one of the biggest reasons why he was so popular. He did it in a different way. He made the more mundane parts of the game electric. I mean, he was a human highlight reel on the base paths. You can't say that about many players. Most players are just focused on not making a mistake while on the bases. Billy did quite the opposite. He also put up his fair share of highlights on defense, which, there are other good defenders out there, but man, there is something about watching a guy that fast track down balls in center field. Hamilton may not be at his peak anymore, and only had 2 plate appearances in 2023, which is to be expected since he is now 32 years old, and his most valuable tool, his speed, is usually the first to go. Let's not cry because it's over though. Let's smile because it happened, and that we got to watch prime Billy Hamilton tear it up in ways that we have never seen before. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week. Subscribe if you enjoyed. Goodbye.